Welcome back to the Indiewood Podcast, a podcast about independent film and the many hats filmmakers have to wear in order to get those films made. In this series, I've been talking to an incredible artist, an incredible actor and writer,
Thank you,
and teacher and father. We've been adding multi-hyphenates as we've been kind of go along.
Yeah.
He's been an incredible inspiration to my craft, and we've worked together before. And we're going to end this series with a little bit of education. I think a little bit of sharing knowledge, because I think we both kind of had, enough of it to share. We've done enough for us to figure out some stuff, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wayne T. Carr is with me once again.
Yes. Glad to be here.
So we've talked about your career, ups and downs. We've talked about using your craft for other things and kind of legitimizing your craft. And last episode, we talked about doing things on your own or with your friends, something small scale, and finding different ways to exhibit that, but also treating your exhibition as something different. And then we ended the episode on kind of setting goals for yourselves and meeting those things and kind of what motivates you. And you said something interesting where it was like, if you are motivated by that award, the Oscar, the success, use that. But I had an interesting kind of thought where sometimes those goals are really, really high.
Yeah.
And it'll take you a very long time to get there.
Yeah.
And so you've taught quite often, quite a bit, and you've taught a lot of people. And my question for you was going to be like, how do you maintain that sense of self-care, self-love, and motivation when you have these goals that are so high? And then obviously you should set, more goals closer to kind of where you are so you can hit them and stay motivated. But also,
great idea.
What are you doing when those moments where you are missing those really high goals and you start to lose motivation, you start to lose that creative drive?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone, and I have not lost my creative drive recently, and I think the reason why is because I don't allow things to become too precious, or I don't allow things to linger for too long. I've done that quite often, and it always sets me up for failure. So we were talking about the last episode about Zack Snyder's Justice League and the potential to be Green Lantern. And I shot this scene with him, and then he goes and he shows it to the studios, and the studios goes, well, no, you can't do that. We told you not to introduce any new characters. You can't do that. And he calls me and he says, Wayne, I'm sorry, they won't allow me to do it. It's really frustrating, but they won't allow me to add that to the thing. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
With big names.
Yeah.
They get into things, they do things, they have opportunities, and they go away. And then it's like, okay, well, what do you do? And taking note from some of the people who are on those higher level of whatever, they just keep moving. So, if you were one of my students and you were like, my goals are really high, and it's going to take me a long time to reach them. And matter of fact, I had a really high goal and I just didn't quite reach it. I had it set for, this year to happen, and I'm halfway there. What are your markers? What are your things? And for you, I might say, this is something I wouldn't give this advice to myself. Well, maybe I should, but I would probably say to you, try for your next goal, making it grander.
Okay.
See,
I thought you were going to go the opposite way.
Nope. Make it huge, bigger than you. Like, I want to win okay, make it 5 times. Just see if it's experimentation.
I see.
It's playing around with what works for you.
Okay.
That doesn't work for me. Dreaming so big that, whatever. No.
See, I'll tell you what I did, because I had the same thing where I was like, by 27, I want to be here in my career.
Yes, right.
I hit 27. Guess where I was?
Where were you?
Not that point in my
career. You were not at that point.
Where
were you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was doing short films, I was doing a lot of production, doing music videos. I think I interned a little bit too at a production company, which was hard because I was still kind of overcoming a lot of obstacles and hurdles early on in my
Of
career. How
course.
to self care and, be disciplined and treat my creativity with grace. And so I was writing stuff for myself. And it really bummed me out that at 27 I wasn't where I wanted to be, which was like, working and having sold a script. And I was like, I haven't sold a script. I haven't been on a TV show.
But you had written scripts
I had written scripts at the time, yeah.
and you were working doing music
Yeah,
videos?
I was doing music videos. I did some shorts. Did a doc, I think, too. God, it's been so
You said,
long.
did you say you were interning somewhere?
Yeah, and I interned at a company called Voltage Pictures.
Yeah. So let me stop you right there. And I would say, if you were my student,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal.
It is, but see, that's the thing is, I had to go through that, and this is where like my kind of journey took me is, those goals were high and realistic, but I missed them. And then when I realized is that my journey, because now 10 years later, 11 years later, I'm 38 now. There's so many things that have happened in such a different direction, but still within this creative bubble that I want to live in,
Yeah.
that are incredibly incredible. And I think it's because I started saying yes to things,
Yeah.
right? I think I needed to be more conscientious of the things I was being successful at instead of the things that I wasn't being successful at. Because that was my crux, is I was focusing on the things that I was missing. Oh, I missed the target on this. Oh, I missed the target on that. Not realizing that I was working so hard in achieving all these other amazing things.
Yeah.
And then I got into grad school, and then I realized, holy crap, look at all these amazing things that I've done. And I've met a lot of creatives who look at their career where they are now and they're like, I'm terrible. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a terrible artist. I'm never going to succeed. And then I'm like, turn around and look where you came from.
Here you go. Yeah.
Look at what you've been in. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've achieved. And then they look back and they're like, holy crap, I'm kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so when I started looking back and like seeing all the things I've done, I'm like, wow, Yara's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started thinking I was cool, and now I'm cool. And anybody who says
That's
otherwise,
great.
he's kick rocks. So yeah,
I love that.
I think that's an interesting perspective, because I was like, set yourself. I was going to say, set yourself more goals that are between where you are now and where you want to be.
Yeah.
Set more goals, because once you start hitting them, as you're inching closer to your bigger goal, when you turn around, you're like, wow, I did all that.
Yeah.
But also the opposite is interesting, because you can set higher goals for yourself,
Yeah.
and then be more. You can fantasize more. You can have more, more ideas about who you are as a creator, what you want to do. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I was born a dreamer. I think a lot of my friends are in that category. They're dreamers. But one of the things that I'm realizing for myself, and again, like I told you the other day, like tomorrow it may change, but right now I need to like take that samurai sword and sharpen it on this granite over and over and over again. And that's all I do until I make the sword as sharp as I need it to be or want it to be, to refine my technique in this one particular thing.
Yeah.
Not where I'm going to sell the sword, who's going to, none of that.
What's it going to
It's
cut?
just kind of like,
that one thing.
I need to focus on this one thing, because tomorrow my goals are going to shift. And that's what I know of myself. Tomorrow I'm going to desire to have this or do whatever. Today, I just need to focus on this thing.
Well, it's a good segue to kind of the thing I wanted to talk about on this episode. When you're teaching actors, what's the most common thing that pops up that they want to know, that they're struggling with? Like, is there a nugget where they're like, this is an obstacle in their career that they have to overcome?
Yeah, I think most actors that I teach, because they're all on the college level, they haven't been out into the world yet. They just want to be the best. They just want to be the best. And that's cool to want to be the best. That takes, time, I guess, and, whatever. But I try to help them realize let's make you the best storyteller that you can be, period. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Don't try to whatever. But they want to be the best so that that agent, so that that director, so that, that writer writes for them and wants to work with them and, and they can become big movie stars or whatever. Like, that's what they want. But they need to learn how to relax. They need to learn how
to be chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to breathe. They need to learn. It's not very sexy.
No.
To like sit down and go, hey, you know what? Breathe. Take a pause. Now say that thing. How did that make you feel? It's boring when you like dissect it like that. They want to make that award-winning speech, but it's a technique and it's really difficult. And it's that kind of like that quote, you know what I mean? It's going a long way to get to where you want to go.
I like your kind of perspective on that. I think just to add, when you're always constantly worried about being the best, you're missing the greatness that you're achieving now.
Yeah.
You're thinking about this thing in the future. You're not in the present. You're not in the moment. You're like, oh, I'm going to deliver this great thing later.
Yeah.
Well, what about the thing you just did now? Like we're here in this space, in this moment, in this time, and also like I think what you're alluding to is that they are trying to be the best, and so they're pushing.
Yeah.
And that shows where you can be like, I can't act, and then you're like, let's tone it down a little bit. Like, let's see what we can do with craft and with that's interesting. What about for directors? Like, what are directors trying to consistently overcome?
I think directors are consistently trying to overcome not knowing the language, not knowing the terminology to achieve what they want to achieve with an actor. They know how to talk to the person who's focusing. They know how to talk to the person who's doing lights. They know how to talk to know everything about building the thing. What's your objective? Is that the right word? I'm not sure.
Motivation? Oh.
What is your motivation? Just be more angry. You know what I mean? Like, that is the hardest part, to try to help directors understand that there's a terminology that the actors are being trained with. There are words, there are key phrases, there are techniques that they're learning to try to help them be human on the screen or on stage. And directors, for the most part, are not taught that.
Like how to give a note to an actor.
How to give a note to an actor. What is going to help that individual get to the place that you want them to get to? How do you communicate that to them in the best, most effective way? Or how do you communicate it in general? Because a lot of directors will say the same thing about different colors of, that they want in a particular thing, but they'll say, I want that to be more
louder,
this, or more this. But it's more nuanced than that.
What is the worst note that you've gotten? How about this? Rephrase.
Yeah.
What's the worst note you consistently get?
That I consistently get?
As an actor.
You know what? This is something that happens across the board, and it's not just to me, so I will just say this one.
Okay.
Because it happens to everybody. Faster.
Yeah.
It happens quite often. So if you are a beginning actor and you're doing a co-star, you're doing where you just have to deliver some information. You're not the star. Your job is to like throw this information out there and say these things really quickly.
The suspect was
the suspect. And he went down there and he said the thing. They don't want you to linger. They want you to say the information and let the star take the pauses and do the looks and do whatever. No, none of the young actors want to do that, right? But that is a note that a lot of us are going to get and will get. What the director doesn't know how to say is, why is it so urgent? Because that actor over there will say it. Here's what I need to tell you. I need to tell you to do this thing and do that thing and do that thing. Why? You're doing that because what? If you can communicate to the actor why it's so urgent, even if it's something as simple like, hey, this superstar over here, who's the lead of this show, is going to come over here and chat with you, and they're going to ask you this question. You have to use the bathroom. That's what I want you to play. That's just my technique as a director.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to, because that actor's going to go, okay, great. I have to use the bathroom. So I just need to say these lines real quick and whatever. So I have to go, okay, great, cool. You're going to be so happy as a director because you're going to be like, that's the energy that I was looking for. You just got a creative way of like trying to communicate that to the actor. They can run with it and use that and make it something grander than you thought it would be because you said you have to use the bathroom. All right, cool. I can work with that. It's better to say that you have to use the bathroom than to say faster, please.
Something I like doing for some scenes is giving an actor business.
Yeah.
Like give them something to do.
Yeah.
You know, with their hands as they're doing a line or a scene or whatever, like a motion. Like what's your business?
Yeah.
And I think when my wife auditioned for 1923 way back when, a couple years ago, she did this thing in the audition where she was hanging clothes to dry on a thing and like shooing chickens, and it was so lived in.
Yeah.
It grounded this like two lines, like what's happening, you know, in this lived in moment as we got to the show.
Yeah.
And I think it's something actors can use in auditions and directors can use when communicating with actors. This kind of technique of grounding yourself in the moment using business. So back to kind of this thing that you were saying, which was, you know, directors don't know how to use the language of an actor to give them a note to really bring that moment to life. What, like, how would you suggest they learn those things? Is it like call Wayne and he'll teach you? Or?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I remember the first thing that I did when I got here was.
Well, should they take an acting class too, or what?
Taking an acting class. I teach at Art Center School of Design, and I teach a class called Acting for Directors, and they go through a process of learning a monologue, doing some scenes, breaking scenes down. And I'll bring people in, actors maybe a director, to talk to them, to, you know, chat with what techniques do you use, taking them through a scene and saying, here's how I, as a theater director, would direct this thing. Now, the thing that's different with a theater director and a director of film and television, we kind of have more time. We rehearse for weeks, right? You have that day on the set. Like, you know, I was talking to you about the TV show that the Chicago Med thing. I remember going to the set and the director was like, let's rehearse. And I was like, oh my gosh, we get to rehearse. This is great. And so we rehearsed a little bit, and it was just a little bit, but still it was like we got to play, you know, and then the director said a couple of notes. I was like, cool, great. And then the next thing we did was we shot, the scene and did it however many times with whatever notes that were given. I just did the Odyssey at the American Repertory Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
That was like a 2-month show, right?
Say it again?
It was like a 2-month show.
Oh, yeah. It was, that's how long I was there. And we did about 44 shows. And we rehearsed for 4 weeks and then teched for about a week. And then we ran. But during those 4 weeks, we had the director in the room telling us, directing us. On film and television, you don't have that time, right?
No. Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of set you want to have. Some people just, the way the show is set up or the film is set up, you don't. You just show up and you're required to kind of have prepared. But then as you're doing takes, you refine. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have conversations with actors as a film director. But I think
some sets have, acting coaches on, you know what I mean? I remember doing a guest star on Stuck in the Middle, and there was just an acting coach there, primarily for the young kids who were doing it. But I was like, that's really cool.
It's important to bring some of those things from the theater world into film because it gives you so much more freedom to experiment, but also the reassurance that you're going to do it good or do it right or do it however you want because you have opportunities to communicate. You don't want to burn film to test an actor or director to see if you can communicate. That seems silly. But what I like about theater is this, you rehearse for 4 weeks and then you tech and the director gives notes. But then when the show starts, director's gone.
Yep.
The director's just like, I'm going to sit in the back and watch the show. And maybe not even that. Maybe I'll just go do another show.
Yeah.
And now the show is in the hands of the actors. I think that's a really cool concept where you prep so much and then you just, and I think that's what happens and then let me finish the thought. You prep so much and then you give the show to the actors. And I think that's what happens in TV, like in those long reoccurring shows.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Where the actors are pretty predominantly the ones like running the show from an artistic standpoint because they live with the characters.
They know it, yeah.
The director comes on for a couple episodes, maybe the director of photography changes, but the actors are always staying consistent. Like, and that's why they get producing credits, I think, producing credits like multiple seasons down the road because they know the show better than anybody, better than the writers at some point. And I think that's a really cool thing that I think more film and TV should embrace is this idea of giving the show to the actors after rehearsing for ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now for writers, because you've now written a little bit, and as you're exploring scripts more, and as an actor who's write a ton of scripts, ton of plays, is there something that you want to share with writers to better help convey the story to actors and or directors?
To better help convey the story, I don't know necessarily if I have, because that's not something that I've thought about. I do know that I have a deeper appreciation for how all of the pieces come together. I see the writer who has the idea, who comes up with the nucleus of the whole thing that we build upon, right? Is extremely important. But I've seen people write horrible things, and then the director, and then the actor, and then the cinematographer, everybody's put their creativity and make it something. And I've seen incredible scripts created by this wonderful writer be destroyed because the people who are doing, who are creating it, right?
To piggyback off that, it's interesting to see a line that's like exposition or just a throwaway, and then you have a master of the craft come in and just deliver the spies are here and here's the data, and it's just you sit there and go, yes. Read me the phone book.
Please, yes, right, absolutely.
I think it's that's the hard thing about film is that in theater, it's all the actors. You're just there in the space. The writer is gone because usually they're dead. Shakespeare, for example, you working with Shakespeare. The director's gone. It's just you and like the stage manager and the lighting designer, if that. But in film, everybody in that creative, not hierarchy, but in that creative, hierarchy, I guess, the director of photography,
world.
They're there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes film so fun is when you arrive on set in that moment, all those creative things start to spark off each other. So maybe theater can learn something from film. But I feel like it's a union thing, right? The director's not allowed to be like giving notes.
It is a union thing. Some people do it. Some places, and in the case of the show that I just did, American Repertory Theater, Kate Hamill, who wrote the play, was an actor in the play.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So we had the playwright there.
That's interesting.
The whole time, which was great.
As an actor, when you read a script, is there something that you wish the script would have that sometimes it doesn't? Something that would help you as a character, as a presence in the scene?
No, there's nothing. I respect from the scripts that I have read over the years, I respect it when people come at things a different way.
Interesting.
I respect it. And I just saw this. I haven't read the script. I just want to, again, my feed on social media. This one guy comes on and he said, here's a script that I read. And I love what this writer did. Page 1, they all died.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like that was on page 1.
Yeah.
I was like, how cool is that? You know what I mean? Like to just go, I'm going to just make this statement and just leave all this blank space and then make you turn the page if you're reading it that way, right? And the next thing, and then it was like another sentence for page 2.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then it went on from there, right? And got more grander or whatever. But you get an energy from it. The play that I just did, reading the script, there were certain things that Kate Hamill, the playwright, did that I was like, oh my gosh, that's really interesting. Or that's cool. We all know people putting in pauses and, whatever, or a little dash here, to like apply, to suggest that this is happening. But there were ways that she wrote the script that kind of told you or helped you realize, oh, this is the energy of it. You read the script and it tells you it needs to move. How cool is that? Like, by the structure of it, right? Similar to the thing that I was talking about that I saw on my social media. Sentence.
Yeah.
Turn the page. It gives you a mood instantly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a vibe there. And I love playwrights and writers who do that.
There's a similar thing that I remember hearing about. I forget what script it was, but it was the page was rolling, and it was like, hey, the actors move here, they move here, and they enter. I believe this is how it happened. They enter ... next page, and in the middle of the page it just says a white room, and the page is like blank.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next. But I'm pretty sure that's how it was like structured. But it visually gives you this sense of boom, a white room.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though that as new writers, emerging writers,
yes,
try these new things.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Like it's salt. It's like tasting salt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to play the notes first before you start riffing, right? You know what I mean? Like, you need to learn the scales before you start, whatever. And I think that that's something that I try to teach actors also. I know you want to get up and do this grand thing, but you're like this because you want to do it so bad. And if you don't relax, we're not going to receive it the way you want us to, right? So you have to learn how to play the scales first. It's not the most exciting thing to go, here's how you format a legitimate script.
Yeah, or how like organize a story, or because people do get in trouble because they think that, let's say, I'm going to run before I could walk, and then they'll write this grand epic, and then you're reading it, and I'm like, wow, you have no act one. Or like, for example, you've built this incredible world, you don't have a main character.
Yeah.
And like there's still more to do, but they're like, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then, there's this conversation of them being too precious with it. So that we can kind of throw back to from episode 3. Yeah. You gotta run before you can walk. Yeah. I think on that note, we'll have to end.
All right.
Our conversation. Wayne, thank you so much for sharing all this advice, all this knowledge, all this experience. You just finished the show. I was going to say, if people wanted to see you, go to Boston.
Just
Cambridge,
finished.
But they just finished. Anything coming up on the horizon?
No, I'm just working on this book that I'm writing.
Can you tell me more about the book?
We'll talk about that later.
We'll have to come back on when the book's coming out. Well, thank you again. Thank you for everyone listening. I hope you all learned something. Go make something. Don't be too precious. Run before you can. No, not run before you can walk. Walk before you can run.
No, I say that goes too. Run before you walk. I mean, and the only reason I say that is because a lot of the times you learn from it because you're going to fail.
Because you're going to fall. Yeah.
I was just telling a story about that the other day. My friend was like, "Hey, my partner runs a marathon. Is running a marathon in Seattle." I was like, "Cool." I did that once. I ran a half marathon in Indiana. With a week of training, and 3 days I couldn't walk. I did it. I completed it. I did, but I only trained for a week.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm young. I'm in shape or whatever. I can do this. And I couldn't walk for 3. And it taught me something. So sometimes run before you walk, so you know what you have to prep for.
Film is a confusing, ever evolving, often contradictory medium. Film, theater, and television, and so enjoy that.
Absolutely, have fun.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Anywood Podcast. You can find the podcast and anywhere you find your podcasts, or on the CFA YouTube channel.
From the CFA Network, Cinematography for Actors is bridging the gap through education and community building. Find out about us and listen to our other podcast at cinematographyforactors.com.
Cinematography for Actors Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit. For more information on fiscal sponsorship,
donations, because we're tax exempt now, so it's a tax write-off, and upcoming education, you can email us at contact@cinematographyforactors.com. Thanks.